According to the World Health Organization, about 20% of people suffer from obesity, and this has enormous cost. It's estimated the healthcare cost as a result of this is 69 billion euros. There are many possible treatments of obesity, but most of them are quite ineffective. They try to encourage people to eat less and exercise more, and basically the evidence is that they fail after a few months. So we're trying something quite different in this European project called Socrates. Socrates has 4 partners: Virtual Bodyworks, University of Maastricht in the Netherlands, Hospital Vall d'Hebron here in Catalonia, in Barcelona, and Reichman University in Israel. And we each have different specialities, and we've come together with a kind of unique idea where people counsel themselves about their eating habits and obesity in virtual reality by occupying and talking between themselves from 2 different bodies. There's clinical trial actually being carried out now by Hospital Vall d'Hebron, and we're looking forward to the results. So we hope that this is a new approach for people to try to overcome their obesity. The nice thing about virtual reality, why is virtual reality any use here, is because you can do things that you can't do in reality. For example, when we look in the mirror every day, we see really what we expect to see. We don't see ourselves as other people see us. But in virtual reality, we can do a digital scan of your body and present your body to yourself, and you can see it in full 3D. You can walk around it, you can look at it from different angles, and really it's quite different to looking at yourself in a mirror. The second thing is that we can do things like alter how your body looks. You're always the same person, so it's learning to overcome self-stigmatization, because people with obesity take on the views of other people that says this is bad, you're doing something bad by having this condition, you're eating too much or whatever. But we can show people that really, however they look, they're always the same person. So we can make the body bigger, smaller, and so on, while they're maintaining a conversation with themselves, as I explained earlier, but nevertheless it's always the same person. And the third thing is that they can learn autonomy. They can learn that they're able to do things, they're able to observe their own virtual body doing things that gives them a sense of freedom and autonomy, and that they have control over their own habits. Virtual reality, the real reason for using it is that we can do things that you can't do in reality. The project is unique because of the groups involved. So Virtual Bodyworks has expertise in the virtual reality side. The Reichman University, the one in Israel, has expertise on the artificial intelligence side. Maastricht University is neuroscience and psychology, so they understand more the kind of how people respond at the psychological and brain level to this situation. And Hospital Vall d'Hebron is the clinical side. So we brought together these 4 quite different interdisciplinary methodologies in order to create something which is very unique. Why artificial intelligence? So I mentioned before that in this project you have a self-conversation, yourself looking like yourself, with a counsellor, for example, a counsellor representing you in the future who's overcome your obesity problem, and you want to find out how did they do it. Then you embody yourself, you talk to the other representation of you, then you swap and you're in the other body and you see yourself and you can answer back. The way I solved my obesity 5 years ago was blah, 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 whatever it is, and so on. And keep switching back and forward, conversing with yourself between the 2 bodies. The problem is sometimes this self-conversation doesn't work out. Like people get stuck, they don't know what to think, or they don't know what to say. So the artificial intelligence is listening all the time and can act as another kind of therapist that occasionally will intervene and help people back on the right path. So it's these unique capabilities that come together from the interdisciplinary nature of the project.
Well, let's take one step back. The project is about eating behavior, broadly defined,
And eating behavior is, of course, among the most fascinating human behaviors we find across all species, but also in humans it covers a wide variety of circumstances. People eat for all sorts of reasons. They eat because they are hungry, they eat because they are not hungry, they eat because they want to eat, they want to please themselves, to please others, because they are sad, and the whole range of human circumstances, human life is involved in eating behavior. So that makes it infinitely rich and complex. So concerning the psychological aspects, we are exactly in the same situation, because psychology is a discipline that covers all aspects of human behavior, not only how we are perceived by others, but how we perceive ourselves, how we manage our own behavior. And in that respect, the psychological study of eating behavior is, of course, totally fascinating. Now, to come to the point, in this project, we apply in a very original and a very novel way tools that were not available before. And we combine them. We combine, on the one hand, speech interventions. People talk like in some other part, like in the converse self part. We look at their behavior in those circumstances. But we also, at the non-verbal aspect, and that's more my part in this project, we study their non-verbal behavior when, not when they talk per se, but when they are doing all sorts of exercises. And we can analyze that behavior with tools we didn't have before. And we can study that behavior in context we didn't use before. We study their behavior in virtual reality, but we study that behavior as really being part of this reality, even if it's virtual. And they embody themselves in this virtual reality, and they do this in a very, very natural way, because the main topic of my lab is on how people perceive bodies and perceive their own bodies. So this comes together in a very unique way here. We can analyze the speech, but we can also analyze and look and study and take advantage from the results of the study of the non-verbal behavior. Like specifically, we developed a design in which people exercise as themselves, or as their ideal selves, or as their less ideal selves, but we make them do physical exercises in virtual reality, but at the same time they also, of course, behave in natural reality, and we can study their behavior. How do you lift? To give a very simple example, do you lift a weight differently when you think you are at your ideal weight, or when you are above your ideal weight or below your ideal weight? Do people really sort of very intuitively and very automatically behave differently when they are different themselves, but under different conditions? That's very novel and very fascinating, and we really look forward to see those results and integrate them with what other people have been doing. Number one, and maybe that summarizes it all, is that we combine in many ways it's a non-verbal approach to a problem that people endlessly discuss among themselves. I mean, I do too much of this, I do too much of that. Here we actually make them behave, make them do simple exercises in virtual reality, but embodying this kind of ideal body they would like to have, or the opposite, the body they wouldn't like to have. So they embody these different versions of themselves, and they do exercises, and we hope that they will actually feel, not talk differently, but in their own body feel the difference, what it is to be a different person.
In the Socrates Project, the role of our lab is to add artificial intelligence to the VR session. So here's the challenge. So VR has always been great for psychotherapy. It's a really efficient tool, but if you want to go into social scenarios, then you need, it's not like fear of heights, where you just look down and you see something scary. You need to interact with virtual people, and for that you need some kind of artificial intelligence. Socrates Project overcomes this challenge in two interesting ways. First, the trick is that you talk to yourself. So it's a social interaction, but you don't need AI because you are talking to yourself. The second thing is, just in case you are stuck and you don't know what to continue telling yourself, then we have the AI as a backup listening to the conversation, and maybe making a comment, and hopefully that can reignite the conversation. So that is the role. AI has always been a challenge for us in VR, but fortunately in the last few years there are real breakthroughs with so-called LLMs, very large pre-trained language models. GPT-3 is a very famous one, but there are quite a few others. And while they are not human level yet, they are very impressive in their ability to understand conversation, maybe make some comments, and we are leveraging this breakthrough as an assistant on top of Converse Self. In the last, actually really 4 years, there's been breakthrough mostly led by huge companies where they took very large deep neural networks and let them read maybe the whole internet, amounts of text which no human can read in a lifetime. But the models process this with billions and billions of weights, which are like the synapses that we have in the brain. Then you get surprisingly good, high quality understanding and generation of natural language. Again, it is not like talking to a human, but if you carefully, the challenge is to train these guys. The challenge is that now these models are so huge that they've become unpredictable. So sometimes they say things which are very appropriate and very intelligent, but they could also talk gibberish or even hate speech. So that is the main research challenge, is how to tame them and domesticate them.
So the patients feel very good. We have had a very nice and very good feedback. Once the patient learn how to use the device, how to use the controls, and once the patient have learned how is the dynamics between switching in their own avatar and their therapist avatar, so they can maintain a self-conversation in a very efficacious way. The patients told us that they have learned a lot about their own problems, that the self-conversation has allowed them to go deeper into their problems, and they have also been able to understand what kind of things they are worried about, or many aspects that they didn't know before. And also I think that's very important, the initial training in motivational interviewing. The patients have learned how to use motivational skills, but they have been able to have a self-conversation in a motivational way. So in a way, they have maintained with themselves a respectful, compassionate and empathetic conversation with themselves. Not only we can introduce this platform in our clinical and daily work, but also it could be a tool for the patient to take home. They can use this self-conversation in moments where they feel with some doubts, with some problems, and they need to make a deep reflection about some aspect. And on the other hand, this self-conversation can be recorded, so the patient can share the self-conversation with the therapist, and afterwards we can talk and we can discuss with the patient how the conversation was. And on the other hand, this device, this platform, can be used not only for a patient living with obesity, but also it can be used in other medical problems where the patients need to make change and where the patients need to motivate to start exercise or to introduce a healthy lifestyle.